As you can see, I've been canning already because I have, you know, multiple batches of this stuff. So these are all done jars. These are sealed. You can see there's no clicking there anymore. You could hear them snap when they came out of the canner. I've got the canner warm here. I've got freshly washed hot jars. I've got my sauce simmering hot. And once I stir this and there's no little lumpies, we're going to fill our jars and put this in the canner. So that looks good. I think the paste has dissolved. And so we are going to use, as you can see, that's already got tomatoes on it because I've been ladling it into all my other jars. Just going to ladle this. Nice, see how nice and thick that is? I'm going to ladle this in here with that little stainless steel funnel. Again, if you're looking for any of the tools that I use in my kitchen all the time and have questions about them, I have most of them linked at amazon.com/shopFindNyth, and look at the kitchen stuff, and you can find links to most of the items I really like. So we're just going to fill this up. Again, with canning jars, we're only going right up to that ring, kind of below the threads, because we need that head space in the top. Again, my jars are hot and clean. My sauce is obviously steaming, boiling hot. The canner is already heated up. I know some people think that canning is like this super complicated, difficult, sciencey thing. I assure you that it's not that complicated. That even, you know, 6 and 7-year-olds can successfully can things. I know this from personal experience because I started helping with it when I was that age. And all of my younger siblings did as they got to be that age, and so on. With some supervision when you're that young, but it's not something that like you have to be some crazy skilled wizard to be able to do. You just need to know a few basics. In general, your stuff needs to be hot when it goes in a canner. You need to can it for varying lengths of time depending on the item, you know, produce, fruit, whatever you're doing. Some things with very low acid, like green beans or meat, tomatoes obviously are fairly high acid thing, are safer when they're pressure canned instead of steam or water bath canning. Steam and water bath are both pretty interchangeable. Pressure canning is a little bit of a different setup. I haven't done any videos on that yet, but it is something I have done. And so that's how basically you put your stuff in hot. Make sure your jars are clean, especially right where the lid is going to seal onto the rim of the jar. Can it, you know, in steam or water for whatever length of time. Take them out. Be very careful with the hot steam and the scalding hot jars. Set them somewhere not on a shockingly cold surface. Again, I've got my little flour sack cloths under there to make sure that there's no, even though this wood's pretty warm by now, no shock from a scalding hot jar to a cold countertop. And then you wait and you'll hear the little snaps. We'll see if I can get that on video as the little bubble in the middle of the lid sucks down with the temperature change, and that squashes the rubber on the ring of the lid into the rim of the jar and makes an airtight seal that is good for years. And you'll know if a jar is unsealed. You can tell it doesn't suck, you know, make that little sucky sound when you go to unseal it, or you can feel the little bubble is popped up instead of flat, and it you know, makes that little poppy noise if you press on it. And you can often see that something has visibly changed colors. Well, I've maybe had that, so I'm in my 30s. I have been home canning stuff since I was a little kid. I maybe saw one jar of either peaches or applesauce somewhere in that time unseal on a shelf, and it was, you know, visibly had like gone brown from the oxygen getting in there, and just threw that in the compost and went on with life. But it's really, really rare. Most of the time, if you're not going to get a seal, it's because something wasn't hot enough, or whatever, right when you're doing this process, and by the time the jars are sitting here for 24 hours, you're going to know if they're sealed or not. If they're sealed here, unless you bump or jar, especially the lid area, they're going to stay sealed for the next 10 years or whatever. It's not going to take me 10 years to eat this up. So again, I'm making sure, see that one's a little bit full. I got him a little higher than the, my smaller spoon for that. A little higher than the rim there accidentally. Just take a couple spoonfuls out. And then again, make sure I haven't slopped any little bits of tomato on that edge to interfere with my sealing. Got my lids here in my hot water to have them nice and clean and rubber softened. And so here's what I'm talking about on the lid if you've never seen one. This part is like it's like the white liner on the inside of a can that keeps the metal from corroding. The outside is metal, and then there's this rubbery ring right there, and that's what's actually squashing into the jar and sealing. And anytime you're opening something steaming hot, go away from you. Now here's one to pay attention to with the steam canner. That water is no longer clear up to the grate that the jars are going to sit on, so I'm going to top that off just a little bit because I don't want it to run dry in the middle of processing these. And tomatoes are going to can for about 40 minutes, so they're going to steam out and evaporate more water in there than something like a pickle, which is only in there for 5 minutes. So do make sure you don't run your canner dry. Doing that can crack jars for sure, and work your canner and all kinds of things. So again, all these rings are doing is holding the lid on there. These jars are hot until the seal is established. Once these are cold here, I don't want to mess with them for 24 hours, but after that, you can take all the rings off. There's no reason the rings need to stay on for the next, months or year or whatever sitting on a shelf. That allows you to do a couple things. You can reuse your rings for the next batch of things you can. You don't have to have nearly as many rings as you do jars. And number two, put our lid on there, make sure that's sealed down. And now as soon as we get steam coming out of these holes, we'll start the timer. It also keeps, if you have a more acidic food like tomatoes or pickles or something like that, it keeps the rings from going so rusty because they're only on there for like 24 hours. You take them off, I put them back in my box of rings, and they're good to reuse. There's also, you probably notice here, 2 different sizes of jar tops. Filled all my narrow mouth ones. There's a narrower ring and a wider ring. I like the wide mouths. For spaghetti sauce, it doesn't really matter because it's kind of a liquid anyway. I can pour it in there. But if I'm trying to stuff in cucumbers or beets or green beans or anything more chunky, it's just easier to work with the wider lid. So if I'm buying jars, I always get these. I do have some of the narrow mouth, and so I try to use them for things like spaghetti sauce, where it's more of a liquid and the size of the opening isn't so much of a problem. But that's the only consideration there. They either one works the same, other than they do require different sizes of lids and rings, obviously, to fit the different mouths. But things like this little funnel are designed to fit either the wide or the narrow mouth ones, and so on. So as soon as we get steam coming out of there, I'm going to set the timer for 40 minutes, and then we'll check back in when they are ready to pull out of there. Okay guys, that is the timer, 40 minutes on this canner, so we're going to turn that off. Okay, we're going to carefully, gently, away from ourselves, open that lid up, let all that hot steam out, and you might start hearing these jars actually seal as I pull them out of here. So I'm just using this little jar lifter, which is ideal for moving scalding hot jars around. And that is all there is to canning the spaghetti sauce. Did you hear that little snap? That was a little ping as the jar sealed. I love that sound. It's the sound of all your work being finished and preserved virtually indefinitely. It's just the sound of being done and complete, and makes me happy and excited. So anyway, there I'm at almost 30 quarts. Probably got one more canner full here to do. So I'll have almost 40 quarts when I'm done. And there's another snap. And that should last me for anything I need tomato sauces for hopefully the whole next year. Now, even though that whole process took some work and effort and so on and a day of my time, now every time for the whole rest of the year, there's another one, that I want to use something, all I have to do is open a jar and it's ready to go, instead of starting with tomatoes or crushed tomatoes in a can or something like that, and adding my peppers or onions and garlic and spices and so on, and doing that like 30 something times throughout the year. I did it once and now it's all done and easy to use. So hopefully that's helpful on tomato sauce canning. Hi folks, Ariel over here. Thanks for spending some of your valuable time watching these videos. Hopefully you found something beautiful, educational, interesting, peaceful, relaxing, or useful while you were here. If so, find more videos here, subscribe so you don't miss any updates, and if you like what you found here, feel free to like and share away so that others can benefit as well. You all have a wonderful day.